Paying attention. Everyone anything different?
Concentrate.
Concentrate, great word. Yep.
Head in the game.
Head in the game. Anything else? Yep. Wake up. Eliminate distractions. Anything else? Desire. Yep. Switch on. As you can see, all of these answers are what I would call a trigger. Okay, so what they're doing is they're trying to get you to concentrate, is probably the best word, on something. You know, it's a switch. They go focus so that you go, okay, it's like a re-switch in your brain. Going, I need to stop what I was doing and focus and concentrate on what's needed. But here's the interesting thing, that also on the other side, and this is also helpful for the coaches, is when you're talking about focusing can't be generic, because when you focus, you have a look at the definition, it's focusing on a particular thing. And it's impossible for the brain to concentrate and take in many variables. It's impossible. So that's why when you do, when you do drills and when you train, you need to isolate. You can't train on everything because it's impossible for the brain to take in many, many variables. It needs to be on one specific thing. So when you're talking about focus, then you need to go, okay, I need to focus on doing that. So for personal, when you go, okay, I need to focus, this is where I need to focus. I need to focus on defending that guy. I need to focus on making sure that bloke does not get past me. Or I need to focus on doing that more or doing that more. So you need to really zone in on what you want to actually focus on. Does that make sense? Okay, so and if you're ever you don't know what to focus on, that's where you can use your coaches saying, hey, what do you want me to focus on in this game? So very, very important that you get an absolute bullseye in your brain of what's most important. Does that make sense? So it's a very important tip. The next point I want to go over is when we're talking about the mental game. Another area that didn't come up, but I'm just going to quickly tap on because that is a whole nother session, and that's goals. So when you're talking about having your mental game, it was Confucius said, a man who does not have a target is bound to hit it. It's very interesting when you hear that. So a man who has no target is bound to hit it. So in other words, if you have no goal, if you have no focus on what you're trying to achieve in that game, in that training, even in life in general, you're going to hit it every time because you have nothing there to go for. You need to be goal driven, okay? And goals, as I said, is a whole other session, but it needs to be a real goal, okay? It can't be, I'm going to play for Manchester United when I turn 18, and you're 16 and you're going, okay, you're still playing at club level, did one, okay? Probably not a realistic goal. So you need to have realistic goals. It needs to be laddered, which means that you can have little goals that you're going to accomplish and get your mind triggered in focusing on that goal, and focusing on that goal, and focusing on the next goal. Does that make sense? So start looking, if you don't have any goals and you want help with goals, I can help, your coach can help because they've all probably gone through a lot of goal planning sessions. Go for it, but you need to have them. If you do not have goals, then you have no direction. You have no pathway. Okay, very important. And you have nothing to train for. You have nothing to play for. Okay, very important as an individual that you have your own goals, especially as you're getting higher level and you're playing at a high level. Right. Now on that, now I want to direct you over to this whiteboard. What I have here is, you're the QPL side, okay? So all of you are the QPL teams. There's many other players that are on the lower ranks as well, okay? And younger players, etc. And there's many players that are playing obviously in a higher level as you as well. Now, when we're talking about the level of concentration, the level of focusing, the level of goal setting, belief, all of this, it goes on a scale, depending on the level. If you want to keep going and you want to reach higher levels, then your mental game and everything that we're talking about today, that will increase, not decrease. In other words, if you're playing level 1, Div 1 or whatever, under 11s, you're probably not going to be sitting there and say, okay, before a game, they're going to be sitting there with headphones on, psyching themselves up, pumping like this, getting ready to go out. Probably not going to happen, right? But you then have a look on the other side of the scale, have a look at all the professional athletes on all sports. And before they're about to go out or they're preparing for their game, they are somewhere really making sure that their mental state and they're ready and they're focusing and they have their goals, they have what they want to achieve, they're focusing on that, everything, that's where they're at and they're doing it. They're not off talking, chatting with their mates going, hey, what did you do last night? That they're like, no, I'm on millions of dollars, my club or wherever they expect me to perform, they are making sure that everything about what they're doing is they're preparing themselves to perform. And that's what I'm talking about. So their mental game of all of that becomes a much higher level. Okay, so if you want to progress, because currently, you know, to be fair, we're probably here, so your mental game's here, but if you want to play over here as a professional, your mental game has to improve dramatically. Like that just happens. That's why there is sports psychologists, because people don't know how to get to that. People don't know what to do, how to trigger, how to get their brain ready to go. So they employ people that are very, very costly to make sure that their athletes have that support, because it is that big of a deal. It is huge, huge deal. Does that make sense? So if we're going to keep going and you're going to move through the ranks and you want to get higher and you want to perform better, it doesn't start with your skills that your coaches are teaching you out on the field. It starts up here in your own brain, in your own time. That's where it starts. All right. So that's where it's got to lead to. Now I'm going to talk about. We talked about the belief aspect. Now I want to touch on something that is really, really interesting that I learned a long time ago from, muchly enough, it was actually a business coach. But interesting enough, a lot of business coaches, when you're talking about sales and what you're doing in business, has an absolute correlation with sport. Okay? So I'm going to firstly start off with a ladder of how people learn. So this is going to be very interesting. So it all starts with belief. Whatever your belief is going to drive your behaviour, which will drive your actions, which will drive the result. Now I want you to take this in, because this is another golden nugget. Because if something out there, and this is also perfect for coaches, if there is something that you don't believe in, so it could be going, okay, we have this strategy, or the coach said, yep, we need to do this and that, and you're sitting there going, actually I don't agree, I don't believe in that, because I see what I see and I believe you should be doing something else. I absolutely guarantee the coaches, and I guarantee you, that will dictate your behaviour on the field, which will dictate what actions you do, which will dictate the result. You need to have absolute belief in what you're doing. So if you do not believe in something that's going on, you need to stop and go and find out. You need to get more clarity over why. Don't be scared to ask why, because you need to. In my opinion, you need to stop and do it, because until you believe in that, you can't contribute. What you're doing is you are actually going to, by default and not even know, you're going to be actually causing a worse scenario. It's going to be a disadvantage for the team. Does that sort of make sense with you guys? So it's important from your perspective, also important from a coach's perspective, in making sure that everyone is on the same page and you have belief in what you're doing. Okay? Belief, and I said belief in everything, belief in your goals, belief in yourself, everything. So that's a very important ladder in understanding. Any questions on that? It's a little bit heavy, but it's something that you will, if you take that on board, a lot of things will start to trigger of why you don't do something. Your parents will say, clean your room. Yeah, okay. No, I'm not doing that. Because you don't believe you should. It's just reality. That's what happens. Your mind will tell you what you believe, and anything that you believe in, it will drive your behaviour, your actions, ultimately to the wrong. All right. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about the importance of warming up your brain. This is really important. Why do you, going to start with a question, and this is an open forum question, why do you go and warm up like you do your drills? Your coach puts out your little cones, you go warm up. Why do you warm up? Yep.
So we're prepared.
Yeah, but explain that. Why do you warm up?
Getting zone playing, getting focused.
Yeah, well that's a result of warming up. But why do you actually warm up? Because the coach said. Yeah.
Yeah, physically prepared for that.
Physically prepared. Your muscles your muscles need to be warmed up. They need to be stretched. They need to have the blood flowing through from a physical side of it. You can't wake up and go, great, I'm out on the pitch. Because your muscles aren't there, especially when you get older, right, Mark?
Why ask me?
As you're getting older, sometimes your body just doesn't work no matter what you want to do. But you need to warm up. And as you're getting older and getting in a higher level, you watch how long they warm up for. And they do it gradually. It's not like, okay, I'm going to do 20, 100 metre sprints and I'm warm. No, it's a process. And they're warming up because they physically have to get their body in check. Now the reason why I'm saying that is, here's another golden nugget, your brain is a muscle. Believe it or not, it's a muscle. Your brain needs to be warmed up. Who's heard of the saying, who's heard, or you may have even said, but you've reached half time or a quarter time, whatever in your game, you come off, you've played terrible, and you've gone, okay, I'm warmed up now, I'm ready to go. Who said that? Who's thought that? Who's heard it? Everyone? So it's interesting when you do that because when we got taught very early on when I said playing, we started playing at state level, then we played national, then international level. You had to walk out on the pitch, or in our case on the court, as though that I have just played half a game. That was our goal. We're going, okay, we need to switch on, we need to do all the things, and I'll get into the mental side of it. Our bodies and mind has to be walking out on a pitch as though we have already played half a game. Because that way, I'm ready to go. I'm fired up, ready to go, because so often you're out there and you're like, oh, God, I'm still nervous, I'm, all of this, and it's like it can't be the case. You have to be as though you've already played half the game, so you're out there just ready to go, ready to burn. All right? So with your brain, as I said, that's a muscle. So, and I'm going to now move into that. So you arrive at the game, and you have your process. You may go into the room, into your locker room, sit down, talk away, tell you what ranking you got on Fortnite last night, whatever you have, all your games, and then it's like, okay, well let's warm up, and the coach brings you out to do physical warm up. Who's ever Who's ever watched the, I like to use this as an analogy, who's ever watched the track and field in the Olympic Games? Who's watched high jump specifically and long jump? What do they do before they do their jump?
Stretch.
No, yeah, well they do, but if you're watching them just before they're doing it, what are they doing?
Sort of like moving their body, so when they do the run up to jump, they're sort of like already ready to start
Yeah.
running.
What they're doing. Yes, Jack, you go.
They do this like little step back
Yeah, that's part of their preparation. Have a look next time when you're watching them. They will actually, they've got their head down, their eyes closed, you watch, and they physically go through the jump in their brain multiple times before they go off and do the jump. So you'll sit there and they'll be like this. Like this. So you'll see them actually doing the entire jump in their brain before they're done. Why is that? Anyone got any clue why they do it? Yeah.
Getting them prepared.
And what do you mean by prepared? Why would they be going over and over again their jump in their head?
To get mentally prepared for what's going to happen next.
But what do you mean by that?
Like, so that they are ready when they have to do it. They're not as nervous, I guess.
Yeah, you're touching on it. Why aren't they as nervous?
Because it's almost like they've already done it.
Yes, perfect, 100%. They've already done it. Your brain is so powerful. Who's ever woken up from a nightmare or a dream going, oh my crap, am I here? What have I done? Thinking that what they just dreamt was real. Who's had that? Okay, that's perfect because your brain, here's another hot tip, your brain actually doesn't know the difference between reality and non-reality. It's a trick. Alright? So you need to, if you've done it, and here's the thing, is if you've done it over and over again in your brain, you've already done it. You've already achieved it. You've felt it. You've witnessed it, you've been part of it, and all you have to do is go out and do it again. Where if I go to you and I go, okay, you need to jump over the table, and you go, oh shit, I need to jump over the table. But if you sat down and you're physically able and you go, okay, you mentally focus on doing that. After 5 minutes of just watching yourself in your own brain and doing it, you've got a much higher chance of achieving that than straight off the bat. And I'll tell you another quick story is, in 2000, we were playing, myself and my partner, we were in the Olympic program then, and we were playing, and we had, where we were training was at the QAS, South Brisbane. And who's heard of Natalie Cook and Kerry Pottast from beach volleyball? They won the 2000 Olympic Games gold medal for beach volleyball. We have 2 courts. They were training on one court, we were training on the other. We actually had the same mental coach. His name's Keurig Ashley, and at that time, he's internationally renowned, and at that time, he held the world record for firewalking, which was something crazy like 40 metres. So, and he was, both of ours, Natalie and Kerry's, and mine, he was our head coach. So he would actually get us into this visualisation state. Before we trained, he would sit down with us and go, okay, this is what we're doing, I want you to visualise you doing this. And we would sit down for ages, literally, not doing any physical exercise, but visually focusing on what our target was and what we wanted to achieve that day. We were just watching it through our brain. And in the 2000 Australian Championships, we were about to play in the quarterfinals the #1 seed at the time, who were ranked 2nd in the world, and they were playing this one. So we were about to come on and play these And we sat down with Keurig, and our whole visualisation was about was actually playing the entire game in our head before we even hold out. We played the entire game. And it was the purpose of it was for us to come out knowing, and they knew that we knew that we've already won. So they could see in our faces, we had no fear whatsoever. In fact, they should be scared because we already know we won, and they're going to be kidding themselves if they think we're going to beat us. Long story short, we beat them. Knocked them out of the Australian Championships. They literally were so upset that they picked up their bags and left the tournament. They didn't play after that. Which was, at that point, it was double elimination, so you had to lose twice. But we beat them for the main draw, and they were that upset, off they left. So, I always use that analogy because it was such an interesting time in my life as an athlete of experiencing this actual power of visualisation. Now, getting back to where that interprets for you guys right now is that you need to train your brain, warm up your brain well and truly before you get out there warming up your body. So, some tips of how you can do that is give yourself an opportunity when you come in. Have a trigger and go, great, I need, and I'll put it to you as a test. Spend 10 minutes on yourself, visualising what you're going to do today. And that may be after you've spoken to your coach and say, hey coach, what do you specifically want me to focus on? What are my goals today? Because if you now know from your coach of what they absolutely want you to do that day in that match, you can then sit down, relax and go, okay, I'm going to see myself doing this. I'm going to watch myself in my brain stop people from getting past me. I'm going to visually see myself nailing every single goal in that area, in that spot, whatever. So whatever it is, you just keep focusing on that. And I challenge each and every one of you to do that in the next game and put yourself and sit down for 10 minutes after you know what your goals are to get your brain absolutely warmed up on what you are about to accomplish because you've already done it in your brain.
Brendan,
Yeah.
would it be true to say that it wouldn't necessarily guarantee victory, but it would guarantee the highest likelihood of victory and the best outcome you could
That's
possibly get?
And that's why I use the analogy of the table, saying it may not give you the success or the result, but it's going to give you the best possible chance of having that result.
And conversely, if you didn't have it, you wouldn't be in
That's
the
right.
game.
That's right. I mean, the high jumpers, they visualise every jump. Well, they don't make every jump. You know, they do crash eventually because their physical attributes let them down. But I can tell you that the mind over matter, the mind over the body, so that's a challenge for you, is start sitting down and preparing. Interesting story, and I will point another one, which is your story, that I got firsthand from my son when you went to Bundaberg or you played more than that. Anyway, apparently, you know, some of the games, or especially their game, it was the communication was, oh, okay, you now only have 20 minutes before your game for the warm up. My question to my son was, well, what were you doing for your 4-hour bus trip?
Someone else asked that question.
You know, I'm going, why aren't you at least mentally ready to go? Why aren't you mentally ready for your strategies, your goals, what you're about to achieve? You're ready to go. So all you need, I tell you what, I only need 5 minutes physically warm up because my body doesn't hold up as well anymore. But as young people, you should be ready to go, and they go, okay, we've got 20 minutes, and you should be going, yeah, no worries. All I need to do is physically warm up because I'm already there. I'm already in the game. It is so interesting. It's a totally different thing. So when you see these professionals literally going on a plane ride or bus ride or whatever, and they're travelling, they are looking at their reading strategies. They're visualising what they're doing, what they're about to do, all that stuff. They're mentally preparing themselves all the time for the next game and what's about to happen. So there's something to take on as a challenge for you guys, is to start warming up your brain first. And you do this before your body, because your body then reacts to what your brain's done. Does that make sense? Okay, so you warm up your brain, understand what you need to do, visualise what you're doing, then go up and warm your body up. Bang, I'm there, ready to go. Therefore, when you get back to the sheds, what you do is go, yep, brain's warm, body's warm, I'm out, I'm ready to go. You know? So very, very powerful of what your brain can do. Any questions on that stuff? Now I just want to go through the actual game itself. Now you're warmed up, your body's warmed up, your brain's hopefully warmed up. Now let's talk about things that happen during the game and how you mentally cope. Because it's very interesting of what this does. And so for example, and I'll use an example, and I see it all the time watching my son's game. Someone kicks it out of the sideline, you know, and either the person that's kicked it has gone, and they're angry at themselves, or they're blaming someone that isn't there. Either way, something's going on, you know. Where you see it at high level, they kick it out, they don't do anything. They just go, okay, kicked it out, they try and get it, they're ready to go, boom, 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 doesn't affect them whatsoever. And I'm going to go explain why this is the case, and why currently the majority of what's happening out there is a huge disadvantage to your team. Alright, so everyone got that one written down if you're good? There's stages your brain goes through after a result. Now a result is everything. It's like going, you've tried to pass it, hasn't worked. Or you've kicked a goal, you've made it. Okay? Or you've nailed a great kick to your partner, teammate, or whatever like that. And every action that you're doing, there is a result. Okay. Now from that result, there's an action in your brain. There's an action, and I'm going to say it's an action, but it's more of a reaction, more to the point. You are now reacting to what you've just done. Right? In order for you to be ready, for your brain to be ready to really accommodate the next action, you need to react. Your brain needs to react, and then it needs to relax, and then it needs to prepare, and then you're ready to go. It actually needs to go through this process. Believe it or not, it needs to go through this process. Because I can tell you that when people, have you ever seen someone making multiple mistakes? It could be, you could be going, that bloke's off today, he keeps making mistakes, he keeps making mistakes. And then you see at the higher level, maybe the opposition's nagging at him going, hey mate, yeah, you keep dropping that, you keep doing this, you keep, you know, right into his brain like this. There is a reason why they're doing it, and there's a reason what happens. People will keep making mistakes because they can't get past this stage. They're caught up in the reaction of everything. They kick a ball out, they're like, ah, and suddenly the ball's back at them, oh, and they try and do it, and they miss it again, or they're stuffed up, because they're still reacting to something. You need to go through these stages, and that's why I'm saying at the high level they kick it out. It's not even because they've gone, yep, that's done. I'm right. I'm boom, boom, boom. I'm ready to go. Because they can't afford to sit there and react to actions that have happened. Can't afford it. You know, who here purposely makes mistakes? No one, right? No one purposely makes mistakes. You're all trying 100%. You know, so why react? You know, you've made an error, great, okay, you made an error, you're human, all right? So, but where I've seen it is, I see it all the time. They've missed something, it's like, oh, like they're on the pitch, oh, damn it, and suddenly the ball's back in there, and the coach is, what are you going, stop it, get the ball back, do all this. You hear it every game, right? You hear it every game. It's because you're caught up in the reaction phase. You got to stop it now. Okay? That is gone. Something happens, boom. You need to relax and prepare for what's coming. So you lose the ball, you go and chase that sucker and you get that ball back. You don't worry about, oh crap, I've lost the ball. And you walk around. You know? Who can relate to what I'm saying? Make sense of how that can change your whole game mentally?
So that includes referee decisions.
I'm going to get to that. That comes later. I think that's...
Is Nick here?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a private session between me and Nick. But there you go. Very, very important that you really understand that. And more importantly, the next little exercise I want to discuss is this area here. This was an interesting, this came up first, focusing. Everyone's yelled it out, you know, whether you're mucking around or whatever like that, you hear the word focus. Focus, or your head's down in the game and the coach yells out, come on, focus. So, just another quick 1 minute, just as a group, write down what you believe, when someone yells that out to you, what does that trigger for you? Just write it down, spend a minute discussing it. Your teammates may have a different version of you, so have a...
Hey, can you off our pit? That's our pit. Yeah. Oh, it is.
I'll give it to you later.
Wait. Use that 3 of them. Use that 3 of them.